Rayhan once had everything: money, power, fame, and a beautiful home built on a hill where the city lights looked like stars. People called him a genius. He had created machines that could think, robots that could clean cities, and even a space project that once made headlines across the world. Reporters waited outside his house, business leaders followed his words, and his wife always smiled in public, wearing diamonds he had bought her. But time changes fast. One day, Rayhan's biggest space project failed. His machines were launched toward Mars to build the first human colony. But something went wrong in space. The machines were lost, the investors got angry, and soon all the companies pulled back. In just 3 months, everything collapsed. The newspapers changed their tone. Dreamer or fool, they asked. His partners blamed him. Some said he was never as smart as people thought. His house grew quiet. The large garden was dry. The swimming pool turned green. The robotic cleaners stopped working because there was no money to fix them. Then his wife left. She packed her bags one morning while Rayhan was asleep. She left a short note on the table. "I didn't marry a failure," it sighed. That was all. Rayhan sat on the cold floor for hours that day. His eyes were open, but he didn't speak. He didn't cry. He didn't even eat. The only person who stayed was Mina, the young maid who had joined just a year ago. She was quiet, never spoke much, and usually stayed in her small room beside the kitchen. Rayhan had almost forgotten about her. Now, sitting in silence in his broken living room, Rayhan heard her voice after many days. "Sir, I made some tea. You should eat something." Rayhan didn't reply. Mina didn't push. She simply placed the cup on the table and left. The next morning, the tea was still warm. Someone had replaced it. And a slice of bread, too. Rayhan didn't say anything, but he drank the tea. Slowly, he started noticing small things. The floor was cleaner. The broken table had been fixed with glue. The dust on the windows was gone. One day, Rayhan walked into the basement. It used to be his lab, once full of light and noise. Now it was dark and full of silence. Old machines stood like statues. Wires hung from the ceiling. But there, in the corner, he saw something strange. His old robotic assistant, Romy, was half covered in a cloth. Rayhan hadn't used Romy in years. The machine had stopped working long ago, but now its lights were blinking. Rayhan moved closer. "No, that's not possible," he whispered. I turned its head slowly. "Good morning, sir," it said in its soft mechanical voice. Rayhan stepped back in shock. He looked around. Who did this? A small voice came from the stairs behind him. "I just tried to fix it. I hope you don't mind." It was Mina. "You?" Rayhan stared at her. How did you fix Romy?" "Even my engineers couldn't do it." Mina looked down. "I used to read your manuals in the storage room when I finished cleaning early. And I watched some of your old interviews online. I just tried." Rayhan didn't know what to say. He walked slowly around Romy. The robot was not perfect. It moved slowly. And some parts were still broken, but it worked. A spark lit up in Rayhan's heart. A tiny spark, but it was real. That night, Rayhan sat down with Mina for the first time. They sat in the old kitchen. The fancy furniture was gone, but there was tea and quiet. "You're very smart, Mina," he said. "Why did you work here as a maid?" Mina gave a soft smile. "I needed a place to stay. I don't talk much. People don't notice me. But I always liked machines. They don't lie." Rayhan nodded. "That's true. Machines don't lie." They both laughed, just a little. The sound was light, but it changed something in the air. From that day, things started to shift. Rayhan began waking up early. Not to meetings or interviews, but to check machines in the basement. Mina was always there already, her sleeves rolled up, oil on her hands. A notebook full of ideas. The house was still empty. The world still believed Rayhan was finished, but Something new was growing in the silence. One evening, while checking an old drawer in the lab, Mina pulled out a dusty box. "What's this?" she asked. Rayhan opened it and smiled. "That was a toy I made. Just for fun. It's a signal receiver. I once tried to connect with radio signals from space. Never worked though." Mina plugged it in. The screen flickered. A low sound buzzed from the speaker. "Wait," she said. "I think something's coming through." Rayhan leaned closer. On the screen, green numbers started to scroll. Strange patterns. Unreadable but repeating. "It's probably just static," Rayhan said. But Mina was already writing the numbers down. "No," she said. "This isn't random." Rayhan looked at her. Truly looked at her. Maybe the world had given up on him. But someone hadn't. And maybe, just maybe, the story was not over yet. After the strange signal appeared on the old screen, Rayhan couldn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his bed, holding the notebook where Mina had written down the numbers. His mind was full of questions. Why was that signal so clear? Why did it repeat every 32 seconds? And how could a simple maid like Mina understand it better than him? The next morning, Rayhan walked into the basement lab early. He was surprised to see Mina already there, sitting beside Romy, her hands full of tools and wires. She looked up and smiled politely. "You're early," she said. "So are you," Rayhan replied. Mina nodded. "I couldn't stop thinking about the signal." Rayhan sat beside her. "Do you really think it's from space?" "I don't know," Mina said softly. "But the numbers are not random. They follow a pattern. I compared them to Morse code and binary, but they don't match. Still, something is hidden in them." Rayhan watched her for a moment. She wasn't guessing. She was studying, observing, like a real scientist. Not once did she look unsure of herself. Her eyes were calm and focused, like someone who had lived with silence and used it to listen deeply. He picked up one of the old tablets and powered it on. It took several minutes to boot, but once it did, he opened the signal logs and handed it to her. "Let's figure it out," he said. For hours they worked together. Rayhan was impressed by Mina's speed. She didn't just understand circuits and patterns, she understood logic. She noticed things Rayhan missed. At one point, while checking the signal frequency, Mina said, "The pattern shifts every 10 loops. Maybe it's trying to adjust to human timing." That sentence stopped Rayhan. Cold. Adjust to human timing? Was someone or something trying to talk to Earth? Rayhan sat back in his chair. His heart beat faster. For years he had dreamed of contact beyond the stars, but he never truly believed it would happen. Now, with no company, no fame, and no team of experts, something incredible was happening right in his broken lab. And it wasn't just happening because of him. It was because of Mina. Later that evening, as they sat sipping tea in the kitchen, Rayhan asked her gently, "Where did you learn all this?" Mina stirred her tea and looked at the steam rising. "My father fixed machines in a village workshop," she said. "Old radios, clocks, fans. I used to help him after school. At night I read science books from the library. But there was no money for college, and no one believed a girl from a small town could be a scientist. So I just stopped trying." Rayhan was silent. "You never stopped learning," he finally said. Mina gave a small smile. "Machines don't care where you come from. If you treat them with patience, they tell you everything." That night Rayhan made a decision. He pulled out a large black notebook he hadn't touched in months. It was his personal idea journal. Plans, dreams, unfinished sketches. He opened a fresh page and wrote at the top, "Project Echo Signal from the Stars." Next day, Mina entered the lab to find the room completely changed. Tables had been cleared. Old screens had been cleaned and placed in order. Lights were fixed. Romy was now standing upright with new joints installed. "What is all this?" she asked. Rayhan turned with a screwdriver in his hand. "This is our lab now," he said. "You and me, Mina blinked. Our lab? Rayhan nodded. You've done more with scrap parts than some of my engineers ever did with full labs. You're not a maid anymore. You're my partner. Mina looked unsure. But I don't have a degree. I never went to university. Rayhan smiled. You don't need one to be brilliant. You already are. She looked at him and for a long moment said nothing. Then softly, okay, partner. They shook hands. From that day, their work grew deeper. Mina began decoding more of the signal. She discovered a strange rhythm in the numbers that matched musical notes. She converted them into sound, and a soft, distant melody filled the lab. It was slow, peaceful, and almost human. Rayhan sat quietly listening. It's beautiful, he said. Whoever sent this, they're not trying to scare us. They want to be understood. Mina nodded. It's like they're saying, we see you. We hear you. They spent days recording the signal, translating the patterns, and trying to build a response beacon. Without funding, they used spare parts, broken chips, and even old satellite dishes Rayhan had stored years ago. Every time they found a working piece, they felt one step closer. Meanwhile, the world outside moved on. News channels called Rayhan a washed-up dreamer. Former friends didn't return his calls. The same people who praised him now laughed at him. But inside the lab, none of that mattered. One evening, Mina came running into the kitchen. Rayhan, come quickly. He followed her down to the basement. The signal was changing. A new pattern appeared. This time, it repeated 3 symbols over and over. Mina pointed at the screen. This could be coordinates, a location in space. Rayhan stared at it. Do you know what this means? Mina's eyes lit up. They're waiting for a reply. Rayhan leaned back, filled with awe. After everything he had lost, after all the people who left, he was now standing at the edge of something greater than anything he had built before. And it all began because one person stayed when everyone else walked away. The signal had changed. The new pattern on the screen blinked softly in green. 3 repeating numbers followed by a pause, then again the same 3. Mina stared at them as if they were calling her name. It looks like coordinates, she whispered. Rayhan sat beside her, rubbing his tired eyes. But why would they send us coordinates? To what? To meet? To find them? Or maybe to prove we can understand, Mina replied. The quiet hum of the old machines filled the room. Outside, the wind blew through the trees, but in the basement, time felt different, slower, heavier. Rayhan leaned forward and typed the numbers into an old space mapping program. A tiny red dot appeared on the map, far beyond the moon. Beyond Mars, somewhere near the edge of the solar system. Rayhan frowned. That's too far for a normal signal to reach this strong. How is it getting to us? Mina pointed to the receiver. It's not just radio. I added something to boost it, an old solar resonance chip from your junk drawer. It catches more than normal waves. Maybe that's why it found us. Rayhan looked at her with admiration. You're full of surprises, Mina. She smiled shyly. I just listened carefully, that's all. For the next few days, Rayhan and Mina worked quietly but non-stop. They built a small beacon transmitter from spare wires, broken antennas, and parts from Roma's unused storage rack. They had no budget, no team, and no permission. But their minds worked like fire, and when one sparking, the other guiding. One night, as Mina tested the signal pulse, Roma suddenly spoke, warning. Unauthorized energy activity detected in Sector B. Rayhan and Mina both looked up. Sector B? Rayhan repeated. There's nothing there. He walked to the far corner of the basement. Behind a dusty curtain and a locked door was a small storage room. Rayhan hadn't opened it in years. He pulled out the key from a metal box and turned the lock. The door creaked open slowly. Inside, a large sheet covered something on the floor. Rayhan pulled it away, and there it was. A forgotten project. a prototype device he had once dreamed of finishing, but had given up on long ago. "This is the quantum stabilizer," he whispered. Mina's eyes widened. "You built this?" I started, never finished. It was meant to focus deep space signals using Earth's magnetic field. But it needed too much energy. Double quotes. Mina stepped closer. "What? If it's already working? The signal. Maybe it reached us because of this." Rayhan stared at her, then back at the machine. It was large, round, and half complete, but the core still glowed faintly. Mina knelt beside it. "If we can connect it to the beacon, we can reply back. But we'll need more power." Rayhan nodded. "I still have a solar grid on the roof. It's old, but we can try." By the next evening, wires stretched from the roof to the basement like glowing veins. Romy helped carry the heavy parts. Mina fine-tuned the stabilizer, and Rayhan finished building the beacon. The room was alive with hope. Finally, everything was ready. "Let's send our reply," Mina said softly. Rayhan typed a short message into the console. "We received your signal. We are listening. We want to understand." He pressed the button. The beacon buzzed. The signal left their small lab, riding on invisible waves into the dark sky. No lights flashed. No sounds filled the air. But they knew something out there had heard them. For 2 days, nothing happened. Rayhan began to worry. Maybe we broke something. Maybe we weren't supposed to reply. Mina stayed calm. They waited a long time to send the first message. Maybe we should wait too. They continued cleaning the lab, fixing old tools, and recording every small signal change. The house that once felt like a grave now felt like a nest, quiet, warm, and ready for something new. On the third night, Roma's voice echoed again. "Signal detected. Incoming message. Priority high." Rayhan and Mina rushed to the console. The screen glowed bright. This time, the message was not just numbers. It was a symbol. A strange shape, a spiral inside a circle, with 3 lines reaching outward. Mina's hand shook slightly. "It's a map." Rayhan stared at it. "I've seen something like this before. It's not just a location. It's a path. A path to what?" Mina asked. Rayhan stood up, his mind racing. "They want us to follow it. They want us to find something." Mina looked at the strange symbol again. She didn't blink. "Then we follow it." Rayhan looked at her, surprised. "Are you sure?" She nodded slowly. "All my life, I felt like I was waiting for something. Maybe this is it." Rayhan took a deep breath. For years, he had built machines for people who only cared about money. Now, with no wealth, no fame, and no crowd, he had something real: curiosity, purpose, and a partner. They printed the symbol and pinned it to the wall. It became their star. Every day, they decoded more clues from the signal. The path showed star systems, distance points, and patterns in light speed. It was complex, but not impossible. It felt like a test, a puzzle made for minds willing to think beyond limits. One afternoon, while reviewing the signal again, Mina paused and said, "Do you ever think maybe they chose us on purpose?" Rayhan turned to her. "What do you mean?" "They could have sent this signal to anyone. But it reached your old, broken machine in this forgotten basement. Maybe they didn't want a big lab or a government. Maybe they wanted people who wouldn't give up." Rayhan smiled. "If that's true, then they found the right people." Outside, the world still saw Rayhan as a failure. His name was no longer in the news. His old business partners had moved on. But inside the walls of that quiet house, something greater than success was happening. Something from beyond the stars had reached out, and 2 quiet minds, once overlooked, once broken, were the only ones listening. Rayhan stood in front of the wall, staring at the spiral symbol they had received. It now hung above his old lab table, surrounded by notes, sketches, and decoded numbers. The quiet room buzzed with energy, not from machines, but from purpose.mina. Entered with 2 cups of tea. You haven't moved in an hour, she said softly. I've been thinking, Rayhan replied, taking the tea. If this really is a path, then we need to follow it. Not just understand it, actually follow it. Mina sat down. But how? We don't even have a working satellite, let alone a ship. Rayhan smiled faintly. Maybe we don't need a ship, not yet. First we need to send a signal further. A stronger one that shows them we're serious, Mina nodded. Like a message with a map of Earth, our languages, our science. Exactly, Rayhan said. A reply that says, we're trying, we want to meet. They both looked at the old transmitter they had built. It had worked once, but it was too weak to send anything beyond the moon. For a signal to reach the edge of the solar system, they needed something powerful and creative. For the next 2 days, the lab turned into a workshop of dreams. Mina dug through old shelves and boxes Rayhan hadn't touched in years. She found forgotten inventions, unfinished drones, and even a solar mirror that Rayhan once planned to launch for energy research. Can we use this? She asked, holding the mirror panel. Rayhan's eyes lit up. Yes, if we build a beam booster, the mirror can reflect the signal deeper. It's not radio, more like light pulses, a language of flashes. Mina smiled, a message in light. They worked nonstop, often skipping meals, sometimes sleeping beside the machines. Romy, now fully repaired, helped carry heavy parts and organized wires. Rayhan noticed something changing in himself. His hands, once shaking from stress, were steady again. His thoughts, once clouded with regret, were now sharp. And every time he looked at Mina, focused, quiet, strong, he felt grateful. She had brought life back into the place that once felt like a tomb. One evening, while adjusting the signal booster, Mina found something in a drawer, an old folder marked private. She didn't open it but handed it to Rayhan. He took it. Slowly. Inside were photos, his old team, his wife, a younger version of himself standing proudly in front of a rocket model. A few handwritten notes lay between the pictures. Rayhan stared at them for a while, then placed them gently aside. You can throw those if you want, Mina said softly. Rayhan shook his head. No, they're part of the story. Even the broken parts matter. Mina smiled and returned to her work. She understood. By the 5th day, the new signal system was ready. A tall antenna stood on the rooftop, connected to the solar mirror and the stabilizer below. Rayhan had written a short, simple message, words in multiple languages, images of Earth, and a diagram of human DNA. Mina added a soft music tone she had created using the rhythm of the original signal. This is our hello, she said. They stood in the basement, hand on the button. Ready? Rayhan asked. Ready, Mina replied. He pressed the key. The system buzzed. The solar mirror turned, and a light pulse shot out into the sky. It was invisible to the human eye, but to the stars, it was a bright, hopeful message. For the next few days, Rayhan and Mina waited. The sky looked the same. The machines remained quiet. But inside, something had changed. Rayhan began clearing the rest of the house. He donated old things, cleaned his garden, and even fixed the front gate. He no longer waited for reporters or investors. He wasn't chasing fame anymore. He was building something greater. Mina also seemed lighter. She started writing a notebook of ideas, things she wanted to build one day. A robot that could clean rivers. A machine that could grow food in dry lands. Rayhan saw her not as someone who worked for him, but as someone who worked with him. The 7th day, while Rayhan was watering the plants outside, Roma's voice called out, "Signal detected. Visual message received." Rayhan dropped the watering can and ran inside. Mina was already at the console, her eyes wide with wonder. On the screen, a new symbol appeared. This time, it was clearer, 3 shapes, a star, a circle, and a triangle. Below them was an animation. A small shape moved along a path, reaching the glowing Rehan leaned closer. They understood us. They're showing us the next step. Mina whispered, they want to meet. There was a long silence between them. The room felt like the heart of the universe. Everything they had built, repaired, and believed had led to this. But we're not ready, Rehan said, his voice low. We don't have a ship. We don't have a way to go. Mina stood up, her eyes full of calm fire. Then we build one. Rehan looked at her, surprised. Do you think we can? Mina nodded slowly. With time and the right minds, yes, maybe we can. He walked to the wall and took down the symbol. Then he turned and looked around the room. This house used to be a place of wealth. Then it became a place of silence. Now it's a doorway, Mina smiled. A doorway to the stars. They both stood in silence. Outside, the world still had no idea what was happening in that broken mansion. But above them, something had noticed. Something was watching, and something was waiting. It was a quiet morning. Rehan stood outside, watering the garden. The sky was clear, the air warm. For a moment, everything felt normal. But deep inside, he knew this was the calm before something big. Mina came running from the house. Rehan! Look at the sky, he looked up. A small silver dot was moving slowly, far above the clouds. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a drone. It moved too smoothly, too silently. Is it a satellite? Rehan asked, his voice unsure. No, Mina whispered. It's them. The object stopped above their house. The clouds around it faded. Then it slowly came down, like a leaf falling in slow motion. Rehan and Mina stepped back as it landed gently in the middle of the garden. The shape was smooth, round, and shining like metal water. No doors, no windows, no sound. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft light glowed from the center of the ship. A thin line opened, and a shape stepped out. Here it was. Tall, peaceful, and calm. Not human, but not scary. His skin looked like light gray stone, and his eyes were bright like stars. Mina and Rehan didn't speak. The visitor stepped forward and stopped a few feet away. Then, in perfect, soft English, he said, "We received your reply. You listened, so we came." Rehan took a small step forward. "Who are you?" "I am called Zorak," the visitor said. "I speak for the Kaleri. We watch, we learn. And we wait for signs of wisdom, not power." Mina looked at him closely. "Why us? Why this place?" Zorak's voice was kind. "Because most of your world still chases noise. But this place, it listened. It understood." Rehan still couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Are you here to study us?" Zorak shook his head gently. "We're here to invite you. Not all of humanity, just you for now. You and the one who stayed when all others left." He looked at Mina. Mina's eyes widened. "Me? You fixed what was broken. You decoded what others ignored. You were not born with power, but you used what you had. That is the sign we look for." They brought Zorak inside. He moved slowly, looking at everything: the walls, the machines, the papers. He didn't laugh at the broken furniture or the dusty corners. Instead, he said, "This place is full of learning. I can feel it." Rehan showed him the beacon system. Mina showed him the signal log. Zorak listened without interrupting. "You have done well," he said. "Many worlds never reach this point." Rehan asked carefully, "Are there others like us?" "Yes," Zorak replied, "but very few. Most fall to greed, war, or pride. But when we see kindness, patience, and curiosity, we respond." Mina whispered, "So, this is a test?" "In a way, yes," Zorak said. "You pass not because you are strong, but because you are willing to learn." Rehan sat down slowly. His heart was full. After everything, the loss, the betrayal, the silence, he now knew it had all led here. That evening, They sat in the garden with Zorak as the stars appeared above. "Do people know you're here?" Rayhan asked. "No," Zorak replied. "Your world is not ready, but you are. What happens next?" Mina asked. "We offer you a task," Zorak said. "A simple but important one." He took out a small cube from his robe and placed it on the table. The cube glowed and showed a spinning moon. "This moon is near your solar edge. It is dying. Its air is weak. Its light is fading. But life still exists there, small, peaceful. Life, they need help." Rayhan leaned forward. "And you want us to help them?" Zorak nodded. "Without weapons, without power. Only with tools, care, and your minds. If you succeed, you will prove what kind of future you carry." Mina didn't wait. "We'll do it." Rayhan looked at her, then smiled. "Yes, we'll do it." Zorak touched the cube. "Then prepare. The journey will begin soon." Over the next 3 days, Rayhan and Mina prepared everything. Zorak gave them access to knowledge, simple guides, diagrams, and tools to help the dying moon. But he gave no answers. They had to figure it out themselves. Rayhan worked with Romy to build small machines that could clean air and recycle water. Mina designed a light system that could grow plants using reflected solar energy. They didn't sleep much. They didn't complain. Zorak watched silently, sometimes helping, sometimes just observing. He often said, "What you build with heart is stronger than what you build with fear." On the 4th morning, the ship was ready to take them. Rayhan stood at the edge of the garden, looking at his house. It was old, broken, but now it was also full of hope. "Are you afraid?" Mina asked. Rayhan shook his head. "I was afraid when I had everything. Now, I feel light." Mina smiled. "Because we're not alone anymore." They entered the ship with Zorak. It closed softly, and the world outside disappeared in the sky above Earth. The ship moved like a quiet thought. Fast, smooth, invisible to those who weren't looking. Inside, Rayhan looked out through the clear wall. The stars were brighter. The Earth was behind them, and ahead was the moon that needed help. He turned to Mina. "No one will believe this." Mina nodded. "That's okay. We're not doing this for belief." Rayhan smiled. "We're doing it because we listened." And as the ship moved forward, so did their story, not for fame, not for riches, but for something far greater. A chance to prove that even in silence, even in loss, humanity could still rise. The ship glided through space, silent and smooth like a feather on water. Rayhan and Mina sat beside the window, staring at the stars. Both were quiet, their minds full of wonder. Everything felt unreal. Just days ago, they were fixing old machines in a broken house. Now they were moving through the galaxy, heading toward a moon that needed help. Zorak stood near the center of the ship, his hands folded. "We will arrive in 1 hour," he said calmly. "The moon is called Velen. It is small, peaceful, but weak. Its air is thinning. Its plants are dying." Rayhan asked. "Why aren't you helping them directly?" Zorak looked at him. "Because help must come from heart, not just from hand. We offer tools, but not solutions. If a species helps another with care, not with pride, they show who they truly are." Mina nodded. "So it's not just a test of skills, it's a test of our intentions." "Yes," Zorak said. "And you must do this without harming anything. No force. No shortcuts. Only what your knowledge and compassion can offer." When they landed on Velen, the surface looked calm but dry. The sky had a pale orange glow, and the wind was slow and soft. Small plants like silver grass bent gently in the breeze. In the distance, dome-shaped shelters peeked out from the hills. Rayhan stepped out first. The air was thin, but breathable for short times. He wore a light mask, as did Mina. Zorak stayed near the ship. "You must go alone now," he said. "They will not fear you if you walk gently." Rayhan and Mina followed the path to the shelters. As they got closer, small beings came out. They were short, thin, and had soft eyes that shimmered like water. They didn't speak, but they didn't run. Either. One of them walked forward and touched Mina's hand gently. She smiled and nodded. "They're welcoming us," she whispered. Inside the largest dome, the air was safer. The walls were made from a smooth stone-like material. Rayhan took out a small projector and showed them the plan how they could clean the air, grow food, and create light without burning resources. The beings watched, then nodded. Mina stepped forward with her bag. Inside were seed packs, water filters, and small light discs she had designed using solar panels. She placed one on the ground and activated it. A soft light filled the dome, and a tiny flower opened nearby. The beings gasped quietly, but with joy. Rayhan smiled. They understand. For the next 3 days, Rayhan and Mina worked day and night. They moved gently through the land, planting air-cleaning devices and teaching the locals how to build them using local materials. Mina showed them how to collect moisture from the air. Rayhan helped set up light farms where plants could grow. Even without sunlight. The beings watched everything carefully. They copied the steps. They worked together, but there was a problem. On the 4th day, one of the air filters stopped working. The wind in that area grew dry, and a small group of plants turned gray. Mina frowned. "Something is blocking the system." Rayhan checked the wires. "It's the ground. There's too much dust in the pipes. We'll need to lift the filter higher," Mina said, "but we don't have strong materials." The locals brought soft branches and flexible stone, but it wasn't enough. Rayhan looked around. "We can't use anything harmful. No drilling, no sharp metals." He sat down, thinking hard. Then Mina smiled. "What about using the wind itself?" Rayhan looked up. "You mean, let the wind carry the air to the filter?" She nodded. "We build a wide mouth that catches the breeze and guides it inside like a wind flute." It was a simple, clever idea. The locals helped build it using curved leaves and light stone. When they placed it near the broken filter, it started working again. Slowly, the air changed, and the plants revived. Zorak, who watched from a distance, smiled softly. That night, the stars over Velen sparkled like diamonds. The local beings lit small glowing stones and placed them in a circle around Rayhan and Mina. One of them handed Rayhan a flower. Another gave Mina a soft crystal. They didn't speak, but their eyes were full of warmth. Rayhan looked at Mina. "I think they're saying thank you." Mina nodded. "We didn't save them. We just showed them how to help themselves." Rayhan looked up at the stars. "That's all it ever takes. Just one hand reaching out." The next morning, Zorak welcomed them back into the ship. "You have done well," he said. "The test is complete." Rayhan asked, "Will they be okay?" "Now," Zorak nodded. "Yes, and they will remember you not as heroes but as helpers." Mina looked back at the moon as the ship lifted off. "That's all we ever wanted to be." On the journey back, Zorak said, "What you have done is greater than building rockets. You gave without asking. You taught without showing off. That is rare." Rayhan smiled. "It wasn't just me, it was her." Zorak turned to Mina. "Yes, she's the reason you began again." Mina looked down, a little shy. "I only did what I knew." "And that," Zorak said, "is what made all the difference." When they returned to Earth, no one saw the ship. It landed quietly, then disappeared into the sky like a dream. But Rayhan and Mina were different now. They had seen the stars up close. They had helped a world survive. And they had passed a test few ever knew existed. The world still thought Rayhan was a man who had failed, but Rayhan no longer cared, because somewhere far away, life still breathed. Because he and Mina had cared enough to listen. Rayhan sat in his garden, under the same tree where everything had once fallen apart. The wind moved gently through the branches, and sunlight touched the grass like soft gold. But now the air felt different. Not because of change outside, but because of change inside. Mina stepped out of the house holding 2 cups of tea, just like old times. "You're up early," she said with a smile. "I couldn't sleep," Rehan replied, taking a cup. "I kept thinking about Velen. And the way they looked at us when we left." Mina nodded. "They were peaceful, grateful. I think they'll do well now." "Yes," Rehan said softly, "and we'll never forget them." It had been 1 week since their return from the stars. No one on Earth knew where they had been. No news channels, no government agencies. The sky remained quiet. The world still believed Rehan was a bankrupt dreamer who had lost everything, but he didn't feel like a failure anymore. His house, once filled with silence and broken machines, now echoed with purpose. New tools lay on the tables. Charts and blueprints were pinned on every wall. In the basement, the lab was alive again. Mina was no longer a maid. She was his equal, his co-creator, his partner in every way that mattered. One morning, Rehan received a letter. It was from a small science college in another city. They had seen an old video of one of his past lectures and wanted to invite him for a talk on hope through science. Rehan was surprised. Why now? Maybe they see what others missed. Mina said. He thought for a moment. Should I go? Mina nodded. If even one student feels inspired, it's worth it. So Rehan went. He stood in front of a small group, no cameras, no reporters, just students, books, and quiet curiosity. He didn't speak about money or big companies. He told the story of failure, of silence, of how, in the middle of it all, someone stayed and believed. He didn't say Mina's name, but every word was about her. When he returned home, Mina was working on a new idea, an air-cleaning drone that used sound to break dust particles. Rehan watched her for a while, then sat beside her. You know, he said, Zorak told me something before we left his ship. Mina looked up. What did he say? Rehan smiled. He said the galaxy needs minds that can fix, not just fight. That's why they chose us. Double quotes. Mina was quiet for a moment. Then she said, maybe it's time we build something bigger. Not just for us, but for others. What do you mean? Rehan asked. A place where people like me, those who never went to big schools, who never had fancy names, can learn and build. Rehan's eyes lit up. A learning center? Mina nodded. A place for quiet minds, for builders, for listeners. Rehan stood up. Then let's start today. Over the next few months, the house slowly transformed. One room became a teaching space. Another became a lab for young inventors. They opened the doors to students who came from small towns and big dreams. Rehan taught them design and vision. Mina taught them patience and care. Word spread quietly, without media or ads. People came not for fame, but for truth. One boy built a robot arm from scrap metal. One girl created a water filter using only 2 bottles and sand. Rehan and Mina watched it all with pride. One night, while Rehan was cleaning the roof panels, he noticed a faint light blinking in the sky. It wasn't a star. It blinked in a pattern, slow, steady, familiar. He rushed to the basement. Mina, he called. Come quick. They ran to the signal receiver. The screen blinked. We see your progress. Earth has hope. The next door will open soon. Below the message was another symbol, different this time. A circle with 4 connected stars. Rehan looked at Mina. Mina whispered, it's a new mission. They both stood in silence, the moment heavy with meaning. Rehan finally sighed, we'll go when it's time. But this time we take others with us. Mina smiled. The students, the dreamers, the ones who never got a chance. Yes, Rehan said. This time the story belongs to everyone. The next morning, Rehan wrote a letter and placed it on the old wooden table in the hallway. It read, to those who feel forgotten, to those who were left behind, to those who build quietly in the dark, you are not alone. The stars are listening. And so are we. Years later, people would still speak of the man who lost everything, and the maid who stayed, but in truth, they were more than that. They were the first ones to answer the stars, not with pride, not with noise, but with kindness, courage, and belief that even small people can do big things when they care. And somewhere far beyond Earth, on a quiet moon or a distant star, a light still blinked because two humans once chose to listen.